What's going on, everybody? I'm John.
I'm Dennison.
This is The Catch Up. All right, man. Well, I know it's been another busy week for both of us. You know, this is The Catch Up, so let's start off by catching up. What's been going on with you, man?
Oh, man. Yeah, this week's been pretty busy. One of my all-time cool moments of this week was probably yesterday. I actually did skydiving, indoor skydiving.
Really?
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah,
It's a
how'd you
weird
like it?
feeling. It's a weird feeling just because you look at it and you're like, oh, that doesn't make much sense. How does, my main thing, what was weird is that it's like I'm flat out just, surfing on air and I'm only maybe like, I don't know, 5 feet above like the little net. They have a little mesh net where all the wind is coming up. So it's a
Yeah.
very strange feeling. It's not like a zero gravity feeling, which I was thinking that it was going to feel like, but it's more of just like, it's just different because, you're not on the ground, of course.
Right. I know.
And at the same time, it's one of those moments where I've never had to focus so much on my the movements of every part of my body until then. Because apparently, with all that wind, with all that wind and stuff like that, when you're just floating there, any movement of your body, like just small movements, make a huge difference on, either you going forward, going backwards, side to side, twisting, turning yourself, which is insane.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting because it was funny because, the instructor and stuff like that was saying like, hey, so we're going to focus on this main, since this is your first time flying, we're going to focus on, just getting, body control, making sure that you're able to stay in this position for X amount of time and stay pretty much afloat without any assistance, and when you're watching people in there, especially when you watch some of the experienced people like the instructors or people who have done that, indoor skydiving kind of deal a lot.
Yeah.
They look like they're experts. I mean, they make it seem like it's the easiest thing in the world. So, you go in there, and you're like, oh man, I got this. This is going to be so easy. All I got to do is move my hand, put my arms in this position and put my legs in this position. Okay. That's easy.
Yeah, right. You think it is.
Exactly. But it ends up not being. I mean, granted, I'm not going to brag a little. I'm going to brag a little bit, actually. I did pretty darn good flying, man, that first time. I got in there, I locked myself in that one position and I was good to go. I was floating around. And it's funny because if you're watching when the instructor's with you and stuff like that, and you watch other people, you do see, especially with first time flyers, you do see how completely how hard it really is, because a lot of times you'll see the instructors just like struggling to grab these people to make sure that they don't just fly into the wall or hit the ground and stuff like that. But it's also really cool because whenever the instructor feels like you're doing really well, they'll kind of like start letting go because you're just floating on your own. And so I was able to get to a point where they were kind of able to let me go for the most part. And then I got to do a couple of tricks and stuff, but that was a really cool experience.
I bet.
I'll say that's probably like the main highlight of my week. So what's going on with you?
Well, a whole lot. But before I get into that, I wanted to say, so for those who don't know about the indoor skydiving, because it's not really all over the place. I can tell you, for people in Kansas listening to this, it is definitely not here. But down in Texas, there's this place called iFly. There's a couple of different places. I went and did this a couple of years ago, and basically you have this massive fan, right?
Giant wind tunnel, pretty much.
That's a good analogy. It basically is a giant wind tunnel. You're in this massive cylinder, so the air doesn't escape, and this thing cranks up. There's a graded floor beneath you, so if you fall, you're not gonna fall into the fan and die a miserable death.
No,
Um,
it's a big giant mesh.
yeah, yes, mesh. There you go. Um, but yeah, if you're spread out like a flying squirrel, this thing will lift you right up to the top, and then and then you can pull in like Iron Man, going full speed and and go right down really quick. So it is a cool experience. Like I said, I did it several years ago. So for me, well, I actually had the dream of skydiving before that. That's why the person I was dating at the time actually took me to do that. But yeah, it makes me want to do the real thing even more.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I came out with the same experience. It also is kind of strange when you see little kids who do it and they're 10 times better than you, which is kind of annoying. But it's whatever.
Oh, I know. Yeah, literally, to make an Iron Man reference again, like these people that are good at it, they look like Iron Man, just like flying through the flying through the sky and everything. It
They really
is
do.
it is a crazy experience and how realistic it is. But yeah, I've wanted to do it for some time. I haven't done the indoor skydiving for a while. I always figure, if George H.W. Bush could do it in his 90s, why why can't I do it? Um, there's two girls I work with. They're both reporters. They actually got to do a local skydiving thing for a story.
Oh really?
Um, yeah, well, it was kind of like telling just a local story, sharing it with people. There's this guy not too far from Wichita that's been doing this for decades, and he's not even that old. He's I'm gonna say in his 50s. He's in his 50s. Um, so yeah, he's not even super up there in age, and he's been doing it for decades. And it's just a little you know, two-seater, well, or four-seater aircraft that just goes up and then you jump out, So it looks like a really good time. Um, yeah, I would love to do it, man. I'm glad that you got to have that experience because really, I think that is a great entry point to decide if you do want to skydive, because there's either skydiving or there's not for the most part. But then if you do want to do it, at least you can try it indoors. So
Exactly.
yeah. So that's cool. No, I'm glad that you got to do that. I had a vacation for the first time in a long time. Um and it was much needed. Really the first time since I um so to speak, I got rid of some excess baggage in my life. So it was the first time since that moment. And it was very, very necessary. Um My parents and I, we go on at least one family vacation a year, you know.
Hmm.
Last year it was a cruise to Cuba. That was something I'll never forget. But this year we went to Las Vegas, so um I
That's got
think
to be really cool.
well, it was. I think people think of trips to Las Vegas, at least people our age, tend to think, oh, did you guys get crazy and drink all the time and do this and that? And, um, that's just not my family style, so we like to take it easy and, I've been moved out of the house for over a year now. So we don't really get to catch up um like we used to, So I really was just happy to take the time talking with them. My parents, they're some of my best friends. So um yeah, it was great to have those moments. We took it easy. We walked the entire strip the final night. I mean not the entire, it was close to the entire strip. We calculated it after. We probably walked 7.5 miles at least.
Man.
Yeah. Because for those who know, we stayed at the New York, New York. Um and we walked We eventually ended up like the farthest point we walked to was the Venetian, which is about as opposite end of the strip as you can get. Um, and so we walked from New York to the Bellagio, through the Bellagio, to the Mirage, through the Mirage. Then went over to the Venetian, walked all the way. The Venetian is crazy, man. Um, they have these shops, and it literally looks like you're in Venice when you're at these shops. Um,
Oh.
yeah, they even have people on gondolas, like rowing
Hmm.
people through on the actual body of water that goes through this hotel, um,
Yeah,
or
that's
resort.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was wild. That was pretty crazy. Every one of those had something special about them, though. Um, the New York. This was even a little detail thing, but I picked up on. I thought it was really cool. Um, there's a part where you're in like it looks like you're in Lower Manhattan. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, and there was steam coming through. And we're like, where's that steam coming from? They had an artificial they had artificial steam coming up through the manholes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I know. So just little details like that. That's what makes Las Vegas, you know. We ate at some really cool places. Yeah, a lot of really cool places, honestly. And rode the New York roller coaster, went and saw the Blue Man Group. Um, you remember the Blue Man Group, right?
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah, I remember seeing them when I went to Universal. That was really fun.
So you got to see
I
them at
hope your experience was really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what did you think of them when you saw them at Universal?
Um, it was cool but odd.
Yeah. That's pretty much the only way to
That's
describe it,
probably
right?
like the best. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. Very
Yeah.
odd.
Yeah. I'd asked several people before I went, "Hey, what should I expect at the Blue Man Group?" And no one could even give me part of an answer. You know, like for the most part, if people had seen them, they would be like, "Well, you just kind of have to see them." and, and
That's
that's
helpful.
yeah, but it's so true. It's so
Hmm.
true. I don't really know how to describe what I just witnessed, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a different performance or an experience, really.
Yeah.
That they.
Yeah, you have these blue people, that don't talk at all.
Hmm.
They're extremely quirky. Um,
It's
they
like
play
watching the Three Stooges.
it kind of is actually. They play percussion and they do the percussion really well. Um, and at ours, they had these massive PVC pipes that were supposed to look like plumbing.
Hmm.
Did they have that at yours?
I believe so. I believe they had something similar. I don't think it was PVC pipes. I think they were actually no. I think they were using like they did a lot of trash can stuff, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
metal trash cans, which was nice.
Yeah, that is cool. That is cool. Yeah, we had well, they had like floor toms that they would pour fluid into.
Hmm.
And then they'd start hitting it and it would shoot the fluid out of the drums and it was like colored, and they had all this lighting behind it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so really I'll just tell you how this thing ended up. It ended up like a rave. The craziest rave I've ever seen in my life. Um and there was like references to toilet paper or just plumbing throughout of it. So
Hmm.
they had this video that was in the middle of their set that started making you think they were talking about social networking based off the graphics and what they were saying and stuff. And they were like, it's something that connects all of us and we can all relate to. And then it comes up through what looks like these internet, pipes. And then it goes,
Yeah.
we're talking about plumbing. And so it was really funny. Well, at the end, when they start raving, I can't even see my dad right next to me. That's how strong these strobe lights were.
Oh my gosh.
It was insane. I thought I was spazzing out, and they they literally shot gigantic rolls of toilet paper out from all sides of the theater. massive. I mean, they covered all of the seats and everything, so everybody's grabbing it and moving it forward, and everybody's ripping it off and moving it forward to eventually where it reaches the front, and the Blue Man Group grabs it, and they're just dancing all around with this gigantic wad of toilet paper. It was so weird. I'm like, what is this? But it was fun, and it was in the Luxor, which anybody who knows the Luxor, it looks like a pyramid from the outside, and it looks even more like a pyramid on the inside. It was a very cool hotel. But yeah, don't I don't know, what that was. and and if I was one of those people that went in there and got intoxicated and all that, I I probably would not be okay. Like if I went in there drunk, like they would have to use that toilet paper to clean up the mess I made.
You're like, what is happening? I don't understand.
I didn't, man. It was so crazy. Was it kind of like that at yours?
Yeah. I mean, it had this really cool, strange, climactic. I can't exactly remember, but I do remember. I remember it was a strange ending.
Yeah.
To say the least. It was strange, but at the same time, it was also kind of cool. It's just for me, I think that was the biggest highlight for me because I mean, this was probably like 7 years ago, maybe 9, somewhere around there. I can't remember. I remember I was still in high school for sure. And so I just remember just how quirky they were. I think that was my main takeaway from that whole experience was just they were super quirky. And like I said, it really did kind of remind me of the slapstick comedy of the Three Stooges in some ways.
Yeah,
but at the same time, it was weird because they were able to, create such an interesting performance.
Oh,
at the same time.
Least. Yeah, to say the least. And I will say that, if you have ADD, that is the show for you. Oh man.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, the thing I appreciate about them, and then I'll get off of this, but the thing I appreciate about them is they do 2 shows a night. That was the first show. And so then they have to clean up all of that. And they, especially on the drumming sections, they were really getting after it. They were putting forth a lot of effort. And so I appreciate that workmanship, and the dedication to the craft. It was impressive. It was from that standpoint. So, kudos to them. That's if you want to be successful, you got to put in the work. Obviously, it's not the same Blue Man Group from 50 years ago, but
of course.
But they've put in the work for decades, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're completely correct. I mean, it's amazing that they're able to bring also like new show components or really just new choreography or also just like a whole new show.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like from what you did or what you saw and what I saw were completely different, but they were just as quirky and strange and stuff like that. So I think that was really cool because I think just them in general being able to create such innovative, albeit strange performances.
Oh my!
Is kind of like a staple to show how special and how unique they are.
Yes, very, very much so. Yeah, I mean to maintain everybody. I appreciate people that maintain a consistent message throughout. So, theirs is just completely different from what I'm used to, but they have maintained that message throughout the entirety of their career. So, yeah, I think it's cool that they continue to come up with unique stuff for them, and with an act like that, there's just no boundaries, really. So, um, anyway, we like to keep it a little bit more tame here. We on the catch up.
That's true.
Yeah, we're not gonna like strobe your ears or anything like that. But I don't
Hmm.
even know how you do that. But um, anyway, so we got some topics we want to talk about. If you didn't listen last week, or if you don't remember, we're trying things a little bit different. We're catching up. Because we still live states apart, and we're still bros. So 10 episodes in, we still got a lot to catch up on. So
Oh yeah, man.
yeah,
Always.
crazy we're on our 10th episode, um,
Very.
but yeah. So for those of you who've listened, thank you for coming along with us. We're gonna jump into our topics here. We're gonna talk about genetic modification in China of people, which is crazy. It's crazy. So
Hmm.
it really grabbed a lot of headlines this week, both for the average person and in the science community. So we can talk about that, and then we're car guys, cars in the logo. So it'd be crazy if we didn't talk about cars. And there was an LA Auto Show just a few days back, so we're gonna talk about that. But all of that will be coming up after this break.
So this story about this gene editing is a little strange to me. Also, um, intriguing in some ways.
I agree with that.
So what's going on? What's going on with it is pretty much in China. A doctor went ahead and started testing of gene editing, and the specific gene that he was targeting was the gene to pass down HIV. So if like a parent has HIV or whatever like that, he was trying to take that out of he was pretty much eliminating it for the embryos for the babies or whatever like that. So
Okay.
he was taking that gene out so that way when that baby is born he wouldn't or that baby wouldn't have HIV, even though his parents has HIV, because normally if the parents have HIV it usually gets passed down to their child.
Yes.
So that was what he was doing. He did this um, with multiple
Embryos.
couples, but
Yeah.
yeah, multiple embryos. And this past one was successful with twins, if I'm not mistaken, twin
Oh,
girls.
really? Okay.
I believe so, if I'm not mistaken. And which this is a very a controversial subject
Oh,
because, for
sure.
one, I mean, we've been hypothesizing as well as doing small clinical trials, not with humans but with rats and different animals, but we've never taken that step to move it over because on the whole, the genetic community and there was like apparently there's a council. I found this out. It's like a pretty much like a worldwide council
Of
for
scientists.
genetic research of scientists. Yeah,
Yeah. I didn't know
for
that either.
genetics research. I know, it's freaking insane.
Yeah, it really
I
is.
was like, how does that even work? I mean, it's cool in some ways, but
Sure.
I
Yeah.
didn't even know that we had. I didn't know that we had things like that. But at the world at large of scientists, they, we're not even close. They say that we're not even close or to a point where it's ethical for us to do any gene modifications and stuff like that. And so, yeah, he went ahead and did it, and apparently, according to his research and stuff like that, and according to just the babies being born, they were HIV free. Now, granted, yay, that means that it worked, but at the same time, we still don't know exactly what the implications
Right.
are from this. We
That
still don't know exactly what could happen later on.
that's such a good point. Um, that was one of the first things I thought of is, yeah, this could be good. What if this is the start of the zombie apocalypse at the same time? But in all seriousness, you don't know what the implications are. I'm glad you laid the foundation for this because I misunderstood how the HIV was being prevented. I thought it kept them from getting it at some point in their life. Obviously, I was wrong, and what you're saying makes a lot more sense. But yeah, this was the first successful venture that he had. Um, and I don't know if at this
Well,
point it's. Oh wait, what am I missing?
so sorry. No, I was gonna say. I was like, I believe it's also prevention as well.
Oh, okay.
It was prevention of them getting of them contracting it from their parents, getting it passed down from their parents, as well as preventing them from getting it in the future, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I think we're both right. It's just, you know.
Yeah. Well, but I will say now this may have changed because again, I was on vacation this past week, but I think and at least the time I was paying attention to the story, it had not been independently verified by other scientists. This was just his claims. Is that right?
Yes, yes. If currently, I believe it still hasn't been independently verified, and it's there's a lot of still sketchiness around the whole thing. He, especially since most of his publications have actually been through YouTube, which is a little strange because he actually
Yeah.
has a YouTube channel and he's posted most of his stuff through YouTube rather than through normal peer-reviewed articles. He said that he posted this stuff to to a peer-reviewed um, journal, but no one knows, and he doesn't give up, and he hasn't given up the he hasn't given the uh, gosh darn the name of that peer review journal, so no one
Okay.
actually knows if he actually submitted it, if he really did submit it to someone. And he also, I mean, he does say that he will give up all of his, all of his findings and all of his research information um, to anyone that asks, but I haven't really heard too much. And I've actually been hearing that he's kind of disappeared a little bit
Oh,
because we
sure.
don't, a lot of people are a lot of scientists have been trying to get in contact with him and then haven't been able to. So,
Well, I'm sure there's a
um,
lot of persecution against him from the science community, right?
oh, yes. Oh, yes,
One
there
thing I
is.
noticed, one thing I read is that in this international scientist group, um, it was agreed upon that these type of studies and these type of tests would not be conducted. Um,
Yes.
and so it's weird because they're studying genetics and studying gene editing, but it was also agreed upon that there would not be any actual gene editing performed. So
Hmm.
it's a little weird like that. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, yeah, they decided that they wanted to um, make sure that that when they actually start doing, if they were to actually do like full on clinical tests and stuff like that, they'd want it to be semi, or it'd be more acceptable in the public eye, because I know they were saying also that they wanted to wait for the public to be a little bit more understanding and open to it before they start doing tests and stuff like that, or really doing any clinical trials or anything like that. So just because they thought, from an ethical standpoint, they don't really think that it's the right thing to do at this point. It also kind of opens up the gate to, by starting any sort of clinical trials, to what a lot of people have been calling designer babies.
Yeah.
Um, and for those who don't know, this is pretty much using gene editing to pretty much create the baby of your choice. You know, you can choose if it's going to be if your baby's going to be a male or a female. You can choose whether they have blue eyes, you know, whatever type of eye color and hair color and all sorts of different things. Pretty much making your baby look a certain way rather than focusing on trying to cure like diseases that like Parkinson's and diseases that don't have cures right now and that are genetic linked. That's the true main purpose of science of doing gene editing, is to eradicate those diseases so that way we don't have to worry about babies, you know, getting those diseases when they're born and stuff like that.
Right.
Um,
I was thinking. So I've started reading this book called A Dying Machine. It takes place at the end of this current century, the turn of the
mhm,
next. Written, well, it had a ghostwriter, but it was written by Mark Tremonti from Alter Bridge, you know, my favorite band. So I wanted to check it out. You know, it is great so
mhm,
far. It's really great. They talk about most cancer in the world has been cured by this point. Um, due to nanomedicine. So, you know, like little nanobots going in there and taking care of all that stuff. Um,
mhm. The Deus ex machina of medical supplies.
yeah, pretty much. And it's kind of weird. But basically a lot of research on this ghostwriter. He bases his futurism, his writing style based off of actual things that are being developed right now. Um, So, you know, there's that, but then there's also, like you say, genetic modification. I think in this it's it's tough. I have mixed feelings about it. I want to hear your opinion. I tend to side with those who are fearful of designer babies. And there was a movie that I saw in school. I don't I think it was from the 80s. I wish I could remember the name of it. I can't. But
Mhm,
but basically the main premise of the story, it was something I never thought I'd have to worry about. And a couple of years later, here we are. Gene editing. Uh so the it was kind of a perspective on society as a whole. Um you would have these people who are rich and wealthy. The rich and wealthy stay rich and wealthy because they pay for their offspring to be genetically edited to be, you know, more athletic, smarter, you know, anything that really they could need to succeed in the profession chosen for them. Whereas the poor stay poor because they can't afford the genetic modifications. Um, so it was
mhm,
kind of a dystopian look at the future. But I think it's something that you should consider because while this person's intentions may have been good, this scientist's intentions may have been good in China. Um, it sets a bad precedent. Um, you know, it sets a because it
mhm,
opens a door into what's going to happen next, and you know, we as humans uh have kind of a god complex. um And so I don't know. That's a lot of power in a select few people's hands. You know what I mean?
mhm, uh-huh. I'm right there with you. I'm fully on board of not doing any of this genetic modification, at least not for the designer baby kind of aspect. I do understand that it can do a lot of good of being able to take out, like I said, you know, genetic diseases that we don't have cures for, that we just have to have, that we can only really medicate. We can't like cure the people who are ailed with these type of diseases. But yeah, it is a little scary because, as you said, you know, you could have the rich and powerful who could easily use this to stay rich and powerful, creating, you know, um, pretty much family lines that just go on, and they have they're the smartest people. They're the, you know, the most athletic. They're, you know, all this and that. pretty much making them go above everyone else. At the same time, it kind of scares me a little bit of something that I feel like is kind of nowadays we don't hear it too much about, but it's still kind of there. It kind of reminds me of the whole eugenics kind of deal,
Oh yeah.
because this kind of goes back to that type of premise. Because easily I can see people saying like, "Oh, well, you're I don't like the way you look, so let me just go ahead and start doing this as a mass." Not even just, hey, we're rich and famous. Or I'm rich. I have the money to make my baby not look like this. But just seeing it like as something that could be implemented as, say, in a government level or something like that, where they deem like, oh, well, you look like this, you're this race, you're not helpful to society, let's just eradicate you,
Yeah.
because I mean, we don't think that you're benefiting society, so let's just eradicate that. Like, I don't think that's good at all,
Yeah.
because I can easily see that becoming an issue.
Sure. I mean, to go
um
completely dystopian on it, this is something that somebody like Adolf Hitler would love, to make
oh yeah.
everyone blonde hair, blue eyed, um, for example. But, outside of that, now I want to say that if there are standards that scientists can set as an international community, why can't they go ahead and say, okay, this is okay as long as it is for health benefits, as long as it is for fighting cancer, or fighting STDs, or whatever, um,
hmm
and stay away from you know messing with anything else.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, of course there needs to be, if we do decide that we're gonna, we do, because I feel like it's going to be an inevitable thing. um I feel like we need to make sure that we proceed with the utmost caution, um and making sure that we don't overstep our bounds. And we are using this just for disease behavior, to stop diseases and stuff like that. At the same time, this is still very much at the early stages. We still don't know exactly how this will affect these newborns.
Yes. No.
I mean, for all we know, there are already a lot of natural things in place, of like whenever some sort of genetic modifications happen, or things that aren't supposed to happen, that tend to uh, end these types of, in some ways you can almost think of it as like a mutation in some ways. um uh, you know point case in point, you have like ligers or whatever like that, which is just crossbreeding of, a tiger and
Oh,
lion.
right.
And they tend to have a lot of medical issues. They tend to have a lot of they are sterile, which is something. And they tend to also die very young. So who's to say because I mean, for the most part, now that this newborn is alive and stuff like that, they'll be, uh, we'll have to pretty much watch this newborn for the next 18 years at least, more or less the rest of their lives, because of what, one guy
Yeah.
did. Because we need to know exactly what is going to
Yeah.
happen, because we don't, like, I mean, you have that weird kind of apocalyptic kind of conspiracy thing, but I mean, who knows, there could be something like strange mutations that could happen,
Oh, sure.
like a zombie virus or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are a lot of implications that could happen, and that's what we need to be truly wary of. At the same time, it does put a spotlight on this whole thing, because I feel like for the longest time, it's been one of those things. Genetic modification has been one of those things that's been rumored, and you hear every once in a while. But I think this is an event that has made it come more into the spotlight.
Sure.
So it may gain a little bit more traction now,
Yeah.
now that this has been done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think like you were saying, this is a test case of epic proportions. And will they show as a science community the restraint to track these newborns for the majority of their life before moving forward? Probably not. Probably not. But regardless, I hope the best for them, the newborns I'm talking about. I hope the
Mhm.
best for them. We're on the precipice, the edge of a huge technological revolution. Um, I we've talked about all of this a good amount, but the new Los Angeles Stadium for the Rams and Chargers, already talking about having AI assistants to help you find where you need to go or whatever have you. Um, yeah, and then you've seen all the other things with AI going on right now, and then this genetic testing. There's just a lot coming down the pipe, and it's going to change our society in a big way. Um, so it'll be interesting to see where that all comes from. But yeah, man, it'll be interesting to watch. I'm sure we'll be talking about this again soon on the podcast. Keeping an eye on it.
Of course.
So, but yeah, we need to get into the next topic, which is the LA Auto Show. A lot of cool
Mhm.
things came from that. A lot of surprise debuts. So it'll be cool to talk about some of that. But we'll take one more break, and then we'll come back and hit that topic.
All right, man. Well, so let's go ahead and talk about this LA Auto Show.
All right.
Because there's been a lot of really, really cool contenders that have popped up here. And yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it seems like there was a lot of not your main name brands that brought something to the table.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. There's a lot of automakers that you wouldn't have thought of that kind of popped up out of nowhere and said, like, hey, guess what? We're here.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I mean, I think that kind of competition spurs on development for others. You know, like back in the 30s and 40s, there were a whole bunch of car companies, especially in America. And, you have Cadillac, who already has automatic driving lights. In the 40s, in the 40s,
Hmm.
and just things like that. Anyway, go ahead.
So my one of those brands that kind of just popped up out of nowhere is the Rivian. They're called Rivian or whatever. They actually debuted at the LA Auto Show with their Rivian R. Let me see if I can find it real quick. They're two electric vehicles. Both of them. One's a truck and one is an SUV. One of
Whoa.
them is spouting. They're pretty cool looking, very futuristic,
Yeah,
to be sure. Um, and they're touting, was it 754 horsepower with 826 foot-pound of torque, which is a huge
that's crazy.
amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And I mean, they are being touted as like the next Tesla killer, which everyone's coveting that that spot. So
Yeah.
we'll see how true that truly is.
It seems like from what I'm looking at here, and if you're listening, you'll have to look it up yourself. Rivian. They have it's kind of like they're going into the market that Tesla doesn't necessarily have yet. I mean, I know Tesla is working on a SUV, or they have one.
Hmm.
Um
They're working on
Working
one.
on one.
They have a SUV, but they're working on a pickup truck
Oh, that's right.
because this has a pickup truck and an SUV.
Yeah. Okay. Um, the SUV looks really like you could see an NBA player pulling up in this SUV. It looks
Hmm.
nice. The truck looks like a mid-sized pickup, like a Ford Ranger or a Chevy Colorado. Uh, the crazy thing about this truck is the way the frame is built. They call it a skateboard chassis, I believe. Um,
Mhm.
and it allows you to turn this bed into a step side bed. So literally a a step that you can climb up into the bed with. It folds out from the body. The body literally opens up.
Yeah, it's really
That's
cool.
wild.
It's very, very insane. And I mean, they're also trying to tell, because everyone knows that with electric vehicles, you have a little bit of range anxiety. Well, they're touting about 400 miles on one
For
charge.
big vehicles too.
Exactly.
Wow.
Big vehicles with a lot of horsepower
That's crazy.
and a lot of torque.
All right, so what else do we
So
got?
it's pretty interesting. So let's see. We've got the new Porsche. Um,
Which one?
the new Porsche 911
Okay.
that just got
Oh
debuted.
yeah.
Uh, so it's pretty
This
cool.
is not a dig on
You
Porsche
know,
either. The new Porsche looks like the old Porsche. Like you can
it kind of does. It's got a very small changes in the styling.
yeah, you can pretty much expect that, but you know what? I respect that about them. I enjoy it. I love the design. I if I could afford a sports car, if I had that money to burn, I would buy a Porsche. It
Yeah,
just the way they're built and the way they look and yeah. So I respect that about them. But yeah, it's the outside anyway, the look of it is pretty much the same as the previous couple, but I'm sure there's a lot um under the hood, so to speak, that's different.
yeah, exactly. Then we also had the debut of the Jeep Gladiator. Now, this is something that we've been kind of rumored about for like years now, because I believe they showed off the Jeep Gladiator concept a long time ago, and it finally came to pass. So really, just think of a Jeep Wrangler with a bed.
Yeah,
That's pretty much all it is.
it is. And if I'm not mistaken, this is kind of bringing back an old model, right? Um
Mm-hmm.
because they had what did they call it?
Was it? It was the um. It
It
wasn't the
was the Gladiator.
Cherokee. It
It
was.
was the Gladiator.
Was it? Was it
Yeah.
the Gladiator?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Um.
And they're pretty cool. They're actually really hard to find these days. Um, I
Mhm.
may have seen one in my entire life, and I've gone to a lot of classic car shows. Um, yeah, so the fact that they're bringing this back, it shows where we're going as a society. Right now, as of recording this in Kansas, I don't know about in Texas, but in Kansas, gas prices are about $1.80, $1.90. Um,
Mhm.
and
Texas, they're about that same price.
okay, yeah, I mean, the big three Ford, Chrysler, or Fiat Chrysler, Chevrolet, or General Motors. Um, they have all killed off. Well, I guess not so much Fiat Chrysler, but Chevy and Ford have killed off a lot of their cars. They're smaller cars. Making room
Mhm.
for now. They're making room for electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles, but they're making room for more SUVs and more trucks because we are spending more on vehicles because of the way the economy is and the gas prices are low. So the
Mhm.
fact that they're bringing the Jeep Gladiator back really tells you where we're going right now. And I think it's cool. I think the world needs vehicles like that. I would love if, for example, they brought back the El Camino. Um, in Australia, they call them Utes down there. um,
Oh yeah.
and they have they're cars. They're on a car body, but they have a truck bed, just like the El Camino did. But they call them Utes. They are extremely high selling in Australia. Um, I think they would be great to have stuff like that here. That's kind of along the lines where the Jeep Gladiator is, although it's much more like a truck than an actual car. Um,
Very true.
yeah,
Very true.
but I think that stuff is cool, and it also shows you where we're at as a society. So
Yeah, we're looking for more utilitarian vehicles right now, I guess. Plus, everyone likes the experience of being able to sit up high. So,
Yeah. Well, Ford's
um,
bringing back the Bronco, Chevy's bringing back the Blazer. Now Jeep's bringing back the
mhm.
Gladiator. It's a living throwback right now.
Yeah. Let's bring back some of our old brand names.
Yeah.
The people will love it.
Yeah, well, hey, Chevrolet needs to bring back the Chevelle, and I'll be totally happy. that
Oh
that would be
yeah.
cool. But anyway, go ahead.
So I mean, the next car that we have on here that's actually pretty interesting for me, at least I think, is the Mazda 3. What's cool about this is because most people will be like, "Oh, well, it's just a Mazda." Well, Mazda, well, for one, they're still committed to cars. They're not getting rid
Yes.
of any of their cars.
No.
So I do enjoy them that way because I actually like cars a lot.
They're not even pursuing
So
autonomous vehicles, are they? They've said they're more pursuing
not
the
really, not even electric cars. Yeah,
yeah, they're more like
I mean,
pursuing the actual driving experience, right?
They said, they'll keep doing cars that use like petrol or gasoline for as long as they need or as long as they can. And they're showing this in this new Mazda 3 because it's actually coming with two of their two engines. And in those engines are going to have some of the most fuel efficient engines as well as the most efficient as and uh, least pollutant engines that are probably going to be on the market, to be honest with you, other than like EVs or whatever. And these are their spark controlled. They call it the Skyactiv X engines, and they're called with the feature called spark controlled compression ignition system, which creates the way that I learned is that it's pretty much for the most part they're able to get the compression so precise that the gas itself is igniting. And if it doesn't ignite it, then it'll actually use a different timing for sparking to create the ignition of the gas and pretty much creating your power and stuff like
That's
that.
wild.
Um, it's supposed to be extremely efficient, and it's supposed to be putting out so little emissions that it's almost the same amount of emissions as like electric vehicles. At least that's what they were touting. So these are supposed to be highly efficient, highly full of fuel efficient, highly power efficient, as well as very little pollution
I
engines.
love it.
So these are going to be really cool.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing, and I love Mazda for that because they are ones that are committed to like, hey, cool, we got gasoline engines. Hey, we have these higher fuel regulations that we need to make good emissions as well as keep high fuel, high fuel mileage and stuff like that. They're like, all right, cool. Let's get our engineers to work and make amazing things. So I think that's really
I
cool.
love it.
I think
I
Moss is awesome that
yeah,
way.
I totally agree. I think that there are so many ways for us to meet these fuel requirements set by the government, several governments around the world. Um, and the electric vehicle movement in general is really a play on public opinion because the public opinion is this is more fuel efficient, it's better for the environment, so on and so forth. There are several studies, including one just done on Tesla and several done on the Toyota Prius several years ago, that is actually more harmful to the environment in the long run when you factor in the batteries and the replacement of batteries and where those batteries go at the end of the car's life. Um, yeah, and so there are so many options that we have for vehicles and the future technology there's hydrogen, which the biggest danger with hydrogen is
Mm-hmm.
making it safe. um
Actually, I think they've gotten past the safe problem. I think the biggest problem is cost efficiency.
okay.
Um, right now it's still too expensive for hydrogen cars to be viable. One, it's the R&D and just the make of being able to create a hydrogen fuel cell and stuff like that. And then you also have to make sure that the processing stations that are out there to create like hydrogen in general are very few and far between, and it's also very expensive. So there's still a lot of work that has to be done to get to that
Yeah,
point.
absolutely. And it's crazy to say that too, because it's the most abundant resource in our planet, um, and
Mm-hmm.
it's far less damaging to the world. You have hydrogen, you have what Mazda's doing. I think that's fantastic. And for those who don't know, you know, fuel goes into the injection ports in a car, uh, and you have the pistons going up and down, spark plug lights, makes a spark, ignites the fuel, it explodes or combusts, and that's what propels the engine to move all the other parts in the car. That's a very simple way of describing it. So if Mazda can,
Mm-hmm. And that's how a normal gasoline
yes,
engine works. Diesel's
oh
slightly
yes,
different.
yes. But if Mazda can perfect a way to not have to even need a spark, that they get the pressure of injecting the fuel in there down to such a fine science, that would be revolutionary. Um, yeah, I love that. I think that's super interesting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so much stuff. I mean, we've only scratched the surface when it comes to the LA Auto Show. There's so much more to look at, but I think what's exciting. This goes back to what we were talking about in the last topic. There's so much to come that's going to change our world, technology wise. It'll be interesting to see what's coming up next.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Um, car car technology continues to advance insanely fast.
Yeah.
So it's
It
really cool
is. It
to
is.
see and
I
watch.
totally agree. And of course, agree with it as a car lover myself, um, and a racing lover too. I mean, I love Formula One, and the
Mm-hmm.
technology that you have in Formula One has trickled down to those manufacturers. Now, they are exotic brands, Ferrari, Lotus, Mercedes. But from there, that technology also trickles down to, average everyday cars. And so one example I'll give you real quick. They call this the turbo hybrid era for Formula One. These are V6 engines that have turbos on them. And then the hybrid, the electric motors are actually in the wheels. And they help propel the tires forward. So kind of a revolutionary system that's been around in Formula One for about 5 years now. And so it's shown up in Ferraris, like street Ferraris and Mercedes alike. Now, this is stuff that's starting to become more and more commonplace. I love that about racing. I love that about cars. I think cars in general are kind of a easily accessible example of where we are at as a society and how we pursue technology um, advancement. So
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah. So anyway, man, I think we need to bounce out of here. It's been a good catch up.
Think so
Yeah, it's
too.
been a good catch up. It's been good getting these topics out there in the open. If you're listening to us, once again, this is our 10th episode. We feel really proud to have gotten here, it's crazy that we're on our 10th episode, honestly. But um, remember to like, rate, subscribe, even leave a comment if you want.
Please
Yeah, we
do.
would love to know what your thoughts are, how we can improve. It also makes us more visible to other potential listeners. And we want to continue to try and grow this podcast and reach as many people as we can, and hopefully make some more connections along the way. And once again, the Facebook page is coming. It will be here soon. So yeah, we're pretty excited about all that.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. In the meantime, thanks for listening. This has been the catch up. We'll see y'all next time.
See you guys.